The Silent House. Chapter 1. The Welcome Wagon. As I stepped into my new apartment for the first time, a sense of unease settled over me like the thick fog that clung to the windowsill. It wasn't the musty smell of old books and stale air filling my lungs, but something else, something intangible and unsettling. The realtor had assured me it was a fixer-upper gem, full of potential. I hoped she was right. After all, this place offered more square footage than my previous studio could ever dream of at half the price. Yet as I surveyed the empty rooms with bleached white walls and faded carpeting, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had just made a colossal mistake. The realtor handed me a set of keys with an optimistic smile, saying, "This house has character, Sarah. You'll love it." It did have character, a peculiar one, reminiscent of whispers hushed between old friends, speaking in hushed tones about secrets best left unspoken. The neighbors' polite nods and brief introductions during the viewing only added to my apprehension. I felt like an outsider stepping into someone else's life story without permission. Days passed, and I settled into a routine. Days turned into weeks. No signs of unusual activity greeted me. Just the typical creaks and groans of an old house settling into its bones. My curiosity peaked when I heard muffled voices late one evening. The unmistakable sound of laughter and soft murmurs coming from within these walls. Ears straining, I waited for someone to speak up, but silence returned as swiftly as it had arrived. My imagination, surely. That night, my neighbor dropped by with a welcome gift, a bouquet of fresh flowers and a bottle of wine. "Thought you might need some company," she said before disappearing into the dark hallway. The gesture warmed me, but I couldn't help noticing how she never looked directly at me, always cast slightly off to one side, as if trying not to meet my gaze outright. Her name was Mrs. Thompson. I called out a thank you after her departure, though she had already retreated behind her door. Days blended together in monotonous routine, then there were the dreams. Visions of crawling shadows, whispers that grew louder yet remained incomprehensible haunted me during sleep. Strange tales spun from the darkness of my subconscious perhaps. Yet when I awoke with morning light, a chill crept up my spine as I realized each room was immaculately clean. No dust, no stains on the carpeting. The previous tenants must have been compulsively tidy or a ghostly maid at work. My hands found a bouquet on a coffee table, petals slightly wilted now, petal edges crumpled. Mrs. Thompson had left it here, but her usual reticence made me wonder how she managed to sneak inside unnoticed. Unnerved, I scrubbed the kitchen counters until my knuckles ached yet still saw specks of dust on the surface. My mind's eye conjured dark shapes dancing in corners when turned away, a trick of light or exhaustion from a move. Shadows play tricks, I told myself. As night descended, I listened with all ears for another visit. Instead came a low hum, whispers that weren't quite words, more like sighs carried through the walls, a gentle caress against my eardrums, a lullaby of an otherworldly nature. My skin prickled as each day brought new details. A misplaced item here, faint scratching sounds in the night, and the unmistakable scent of smoke in rooms I hadn't lit candles in. Tired of paranoia, I set up cameras to capture these nocturnal events, hoping concrete evidence would lay my fears bare. The first night's footage revealed nothing but my own sleepwalking silhouette. But on the second, an image flashed across my phone, flickering orb suspended mid-air before vanishing into thin air. Shivers chased down my spine as I watched it rewind in disbelief. Orbs of smoke materialized and swirled around the living room, pulsating with a dark light that pulsed and dissipated in rhythmic patterns. Something moved here, but what? It was then I noticed the walls bore no visible air vents for a fireplace or any heating system. The smoke source remained elusive. With every passing day, so did my conviction that Mrs. Thompson wasn't quite right in her head. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyscrapers, I approached her door with trepidation and knocked once more. Her voice carried through the thin partition. "Come in." Inside was a neat apartment, furniture polished to a high sheen, family photographs adorning every surface. A normal home, but for an unsettling air that thickened my blood. She spoke little, yet her eyes held secrets I wanted to unravel. "I must have left those flowers, dear," she said about the bouquet, as though it was an afterthought, though our meeting had been years ago at most. "The house has a history." History? I probed for more, but received only hazy tales of former occupants who couldn't sleep due to whispers. Her gaze flickered toward the living room door before she bid me farewell abruptly, leaving me questioning my sanity and the silence that followed. In that stillness, an unseen presence seemed to press against my eardrums once more. A low murmur carried on a breeze. Whispers only audible when I leaned against the wall directly outside our shared partition. It whispered secrets I couldn't understand. Chapter 2. The Unwanted Visitor. The third night brought darkness and shadows dancing in corners, each form larger than the last, lapping at my periphery like restless spirits yearning to be seen. I retreated into bed with a flashlight under the blanket, illuminating their parade. Shapes coalesced, a tall silhouette, the outline of a woman swaying between rooms, her movements fluid and ethereal as mist. In her wake, an apparition glided along walls, leaving a dusty residue like chalk on blackboard marks. A chill crept down my spine when she glanced over my shoulder from the corner of the room, black eyes staring into mine before she vanished into smoke. I held my breath, waiting for a response to this sudden presence. The shadows dissipated as if they'd never been there at all. Next morning, Sarah Jenkins was no longer alone in her apartment. An unseen guest shared it with me, watching from the shadows, a silent companion that didn't speak. I couldn't pinpoint when my perception shifted. Shadows darkened and lightened around each other. They followed my every move, painted by some unknown artist painting darkness. Every night brought new specters. The woman's ethereal form reappeared. One evening, she beckoned from the living room corner with an outstretched hand, fingers extended in an eternal plea or warning. In sleep, I heard Mrs. Thompson's voice, a soft, raspy whisper on the pillow. 2 words, "Run away, Sarah." The apparition watched me at dawn, whispers in sync with my racing heart, a song of madness. The neighbor's parting advice echoed within my mind. "You're not alone." Alone? Was I losing grip, or was this house an open portal to some dark dimension, drawing specters like moths to flame? Sarah Jenkins needed answers. That night, I set up a camera, and my heart raced as the black silhouette materialized, face obscured by shadows. A gentle touch on my shoulder made me shriek. She offered no hand this time. Instead, she leaned in close. "Sarah, be still." Breath against my ear carried a language that danced at the edge of comprehension, a litany of despair and sorrow, words I couldn't make out. My gaze drifted back to the screen, where an orb materialized, coalescing into Mrs. Thompson's gaunt frame, eyes black as night. The woman who'd become my only clue. In her hushed voice came a single word: leave. One day was all it took for exhaustion to consume me. A strange craving for her counsel pulled me toward the partition. In hushed tones she said, "Hearken unto their voices," and vanished, leaving me faced down on floorboards with an ancient tome clutched tight. The book bore no title or author. Ink seemed alive as if written by tendrils of smoke, more cryptic tales within its covers. At night's mercy, I heard the same ethereal voice, "Sarah, leave." The woman beckoned once more, but the door swung open to reveal Mrs. Thompson, eyes black like our shared specter, a phantom in life who'd lured me here towards secrets buried under a century of wood and drywall. Smoke swirled around us as I clutched the tome, her voice barely audible. Another word, "find." I sought answers in musty texts, yet found only smoke drawings, icons of ancient lore from forgotten tongues. The specter coalesced once more, a form both woman and smoke. In that instant, it loomed closer than any before, eyes glowing with hunger and a mouth wide enough to devour the moon. My skin felt cold when shadow lips spoke the word, "find," and vanished like wisps of ash, leaving me staring into an abyss where I'd ventured into madness or enlightenment. Chapter 3. The Last Whisper. In sleep, I found myself outside this reality, a realm between worlds, where the wind carried tales of lives consumed by silent voices, their plight a testament to our own, Sarah Jenkins' own, drawn here. I returned to find smoke filling every corner, thick as oil paint, ink from the tome, on pages of forgotten lore that spoke in tongues not known since antiquity. The woman reappeared, a form from another world, speaking no longer as smoke, but a language once used by my ancestors. In this room of echoes, she handed me an age-old text. The book had been hers before it was mine. Her eyes brimmed with tears, sorrow, and longing. She spoke the language with conviction, yet seemed doomed to be a silent witness. I deciphered phrases, calls for help, pleas that echoed through time and forgotten lore, whispers of lives lost or found in limbo, their stories penned on wood as smoke. The woman vanished, leaving behind only a journal entry from Sarah Jenkins, my name etched upon it, a plea, a message to the living, a tale of sorrow. I'd been drawn here not just by unknown voices. A keeper had to be found and freed before they consumed me. I took that journal into my room as smoke swirled around me, beckoning with each turn's page until I fell asleep, awakened to find myself in the shadow realm once more, a realm of faces. Each whisper spoke to me, a symphony of voices, heart-wrenching tales of longing and loss, echoes that carried on this side. In that limbo, another figure arrived, a man with a tome and a mission. Fine keeper, they whispered the very text I held. It was then I understood the lore as a bridge between worlds. The keeper, an artifact capable of severing ties or binding souls to silent realms. The man led me through smoke toward black glass, echoes fading into distance. It seemed my life had been part of their story now. I turned back upon reaching our door. A new occupant watched. A keeper, as the woman said. His eyes brimmed with an unspoken sorrow, eyes that held centuries, and he mouthed a word, "Run." He spoke not when I opened the door. It was my time to act and escape both dimensions or be consumed by voices. The specter from the book appeared once more, a woman, ethereal yet familiar. The keeper, whispers fading into a name, Aisling. I've been drawn between worlds. She urged me toward an open window where wind carried ancient tongues, a language only known by those who dwelled within smoke. One last call to silence beckoned as I prepared to jump and escape, but Aisling stood in the doorway, whispers dissolving into nothingness behind her. I'd been told to follow an unseen path, a book, a keeper, a journey through realms of sound, echoes of forgotten voices, leaving me with one decision. I ran into smoke, out under neon street lamps.